when I got out of the Navy, I am one of the people that was told your skills don't transfer or translate. So go start your career over. Now, on the other side of it, I was told you're a female, go get a job as an administrative assistant. You can do that with your eyes closed, which is a whole different conversation we can have. But I had to start my career over.
Thank you for stopping by Nurture Small Business Podcast. I am your host, Denise Cagan. If you're looking for stories that lift up women business owners, both in their personal and professional lives, you are at the right place. As always, if you like what you hear on today's podcast, please share it. You have my gratitude for doing so. An award-winning advocate, speaker, author, entrepreneur, CEO, and proud Navy veteran that does many things. Yet, woven throughout her diverse pursuits is a mission of service and a passion to give a voice for underserved talent to be included. Today, we'll be talking about skills-based hiring and how employers can incorporate underserved talent pools into their workforce. I'd like to welcome to the show, Robin Grable.
Thank you so much, Denise. So happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So you have spent time in the military. You're a Navy veteran?
I am. Yep. Very proud Navy veteran.
Yep. And how much time were you there?
9 years.
Okay. And what did you do in the Navy?
It was a long time ago, first of all, but I did data processing, which is an entirely different meaning today than it was back in the early 80s. So, but yeah, I loved being in uniform. I loved what I got to do. I did a multitude of things, as most veterans, most service members do, which is why I love talking about skills-based hiring and veterans, because we just come with a plethora of different skills.
So you've also got work history in the HR industry, correct?
Absolutely. So when I got out of the Navy, I am one of the people that was told your skills don't transfer or translate. So go start your career over. Now, on the other side of it, I was told you're a female, go get a job as an administrative assistant. You can do that with your eyes closed, which is a whole different conversation we can have. But I had to start my career over, and ultimately I ended up in HR, customer service, talent acquisition roles. It's development, employee development kind of thing, and skills development. So yeah, I've had about 30 years of that, and just really a great vast of knowledge to bring to what I do today.
It sounds like it. So these two things combined is what brought you to what you do now. And I think I shared this with you when we spoke earlier. I went recently, just a week and a half ago, to a military community meeting where the military, certain bases close to me in Virginia are trying to forge relationships with the community, the local chambers, the big corporations, as well as the small businesses. So, and they talked about this, how the transition from veteran to civilian life and how that transition goes, and that sometimes it doesn't go well, that you have to have good mentors and a good system. So tell me about what you do.
Yeah, so I'll step back a little bit. When I was finishing my master's 25 years after I got out of the Navy, I'd met an Army veteran's wife who told me her husband had been out for 6 months, could not get an interview, and he was spiraling downward. And I thought, 25 years later, why is this still happening? Well, fast forward now another 10 years, and it's still happening. Mm-hmm. And it's really because we're not focused on helping veterans see what their skills are and understanding that their titles are their titles. But what is really important is what skills they earned throughout their career and how they identify those and how they promote those as they're looking for their next career, their next civilian career. We don't do that well in the transition process. It's just write a resume, write 1,000 resumes. If you look at the job description, write your resume to match that job description, rather than really looking at the skills that they earned. So we built a system to translate those military occupations and now civilian occupations as well into a list of skills. And it's really a very simple process. They type in, if they're a gunner's mate in the Navy, we translate that to a list of skills for them, and then they can edit it. So if they don't want to do exactly what they did in the military, they can take out certain skills and certainly add other skills in that they've gotten from, received from training or certifications, etc. We have a blind matching process then that matches them to the careers our members, the employers that use us, need for their jobs. So it's an entirely different conversation. If you ask someone if they've chopped down a tree before, and they have to say no. But if you ask them if they have safety protocol skills, if they have mathematical skills, if they have power tool skills, the conversation turns to yes, and here's what I can do with those things. So it's an entirely different conversation. And that's really what we facilitate, is that translation of their experience into skills so they can then talk about what skills they bring to the table and how that benefits a business. And then helping those small businesses look for skills instead of what tasks do you need done for your business or for this one job you're hiring for. What task or what skills does your company need across the board? Because for a small business, they're going to hire somebody that's going to do multiple things. In a small business, we have, if we may hire one person, that person's going to do multiple things in our small business as we wear many hats and as the business grows. So you need multiple different skills and different skill sets, not just for one. So that's what we do. We translate the skills, we match the skills from veterans to employers. And we start there with the human interaction, engaging with our candidates and building relationships with our small businesses. Completely different way to look at hiring.
It is. And, I actually spoke to another business owner yesterday who had stated how, it was a bit of a complaint on a Gen Zer, and how, they say that, oh, they're not working out, they misrepresented themselves, blah, blah, blah. But then we started talking about the interview process. And I brought up the book Who that I had read, which focuses on skill sets. It makes you break out your competencies and outcomes, things that you want to see this person do, which doesn't translate to necessarily a specific title. For instance, even with us, our social media coordinators, it's a plus if they have Adobe and can do design, but that's not the core of their job. So somebody who's a designer isn't naturally a fit for that social media coordinator. It just depends upon what they've been doing with that designer ability. So tell me a little bit more about, I had lots of questions in there. Whoosh. Tell me, is this, so first of all, you said a process. Is this a software?
It is. So we built the algorithm, an AI matching. It's very simple AI. It's not generative, which everybody is, a little timid about. But it's very simple AI to do the matching, because the reality is humans can't do the processing of that data as fast as a machine can. But there are still human elements that are needed in the process. So our machine translates and matches. In the blink of an eye, they can match thousands of candidates to thousands of jobs, where it's just no human can do that. But then our concierge acquisition managers take over from there, engage with our candidates, making sure they're, a culture fit, making sure they're interested, because again, it's a blind matching process. And then building relationships with our small business owners to really understand what their businesses need. And at the same time, help them see how skills are, what skills they need for their company, because they don't always think about it in those terms. So yes, it is a software as a service. We do a membership for our clients. But again, it's not one of those things where, oh my gosh, it's AI making all the decisions and you're getting people out of jobs. That's not it at all. It's just data processing as quickly as possible to get to the right results.
So correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you have two clients, the clients that are the candidates and the clients that are the employers who employ the candidates. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. We're very much a chicken and egg situation where we need the candidates so that we can have the matches for the employers. But it's all free for our candidates to create their profile. And then the employers pay us to use the program and have the service. So, yes, we have clients on both sides of the equation.
So, what has been the hardest type of job to staff in
You
your
know, we
experience?
Yeah, so we really kind of stay away from healthcare or software engineers, software developers kind of people,
Mhm.
because honestly, there's so many of those jobs out there. They don't necessarily need help. And there is rather a true kind of correlation or comparison between those jobs in the military and the jobs in the civilian world. Where it gets tougher to kind of help our candidates is those gunner's mates in the Navy, those machinist mates, and even infantry in the
Mhm.
Army, Marine Corps, and elsewhere. Because when you think of infantry, of course, everybody thinks security. And the image in your mind is just the person on the hill, with their gun. That's not all infantry does. If you look at the job requirements and the training that they go through, there are things like logistics, equipment maintenance, supply chain, human resources, operational planning, situational awareness, strategic thinking. There's so many more skills. And so we kind of concentrate on the construction industry, manufacturing, and IT services, aside from software developers, because those industries can universally take the skills from the military across the board.
Yeah, what you just described there sounded like leadership to me. I mean,
Absolutely.
it really did, or potentially an HR role. So,
Absolutely. But then you wouldn't, if you look at somebody's resume and you see you spent 30 years in infantry and they're applying for an HR position, you don't immediately, if you don't have any military experience, you don't immediately make that connection. And then you dismiss someone who's got great skills and leadership and abilities you just miss out on that. And that's what's happening. Veterans are filtered out because of industry experience. When you think about the military covers all industries. And the veterans and service members traverse all those jobs. They're not just doing one job, as I mentioned before, in the military. So you're missing out on that talent. Same thing for military spouses. If you look at a military spouse's resume and you see gaps in their work history because they were overseas for a year and didn't work outside of the home during that time, or lack of career progression because every time they move, they have to start over.
mhm.
You're gonna paint a picture of that person that is completely wrong, and you're missing out on resilience, resourcefulness, dedication, just leadership. You're just missing out on so much talent, and that's what we're trying to help small businesses tap into, because they don't always have the resources or the time or the money to really, you can't go to every event on every military installation. We can, we have those relationships. So we want to help the small businesses tap into these communities that they otherwise would have to overlook.
Well, thank you for mentioning the military spouses because I was going to get into the fact that hey, we've talked heavily about the veterans, and you've talked about underrepresented, underserved communities. So who else would make ideal candidates for you?
The disability community, 1 in 4 Americans identify as having a disability. So, I mean, look around the room, right? Then 1 in 3 Americans have some level of criminal record. So there are 70 million Americans out there that are being filtered out because of that background, but yet they have skills. Not a lot of them have been incarcerated either. So it's just they've gotten in trouble, they've paid a price, and they deserve a second chance. So there's so much talent out there. The disability community, neurodivergent people, the application process can be very daunting to someone who's neurodivergent. They'll take themselves out of the labor market. The labor participation rate for the disability community is 34% versus 74% for those that don't identify with a disability. That's a lot of labor pool out there that people are missing out on. So I always laugh when I hear people say there's a talent shortage. No, there's no talent shortage. There's a shortage of looking at talent differently. That's what the problem is. So we really advocate and focus on veterans, military spouses, the disability community, their diverse ability community, and the justice involved community.
It's interesting that you say that because I have been saying the same thing, that there is not a talent shortage. I know our unemployment numbers are pretty low right now, so that sometimes correlates with that. But also, you know, I'm hearing for 2 years I've been hearing people say that, but it's just that we've gone through such a huge evolution, particularly with the pandemic, that we do as employers and as entrepreneurs need to look at hiring differently.
I get aggravated as well with that unemployment number because especially for veterans, it's 2.9%. The problem for veterans is underemployment. That employment number, and again, the unemployment number doesn't count a lot of people in the justice involved community because they've taken themselves out of the labor pool. They don't apply for jobs anymore. That unemployment number comes from being able to see who's applying for jobs and how many jobs are out there for them to apply to. It doesn't represent all the military spouses who've taken themselves out of the labor pool, all the veterans who've taken themselves out of the labor pool. That's what we really need to be concerned with.
And the
It's all
moms who
those
can't
people out
find
there.
childcare, and yes.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. So again, there's talent out there, and our numbers, the unemployment is not indicative of who's available.
How interesting. So,
Yeah.
what would an employer need to do to work with you, and what makes a good match?
Yeah. So again, small business, we really want to build a relationship with small business owners because they're the ones that need to work on their business, and we help them do that instead of working in their business. So that's our ideal market or segment of the population. But when you want to adopt a skills-based process, it's super easy. It doesn't take a lot. It certainly doesn't take any money. All you have to do is just when you sit down to think about a job, think about it in terms of the skills your company needs, not just the tasks you need done. And it takes a little bit more, kind of dedication to understanding what you need in your company. And a lot of times, small business owners are so busy working in their business, they're just like, I just need to hire a maintenance tech so that I don't have to do the maintenance for my company anymore. And so now I just need to look for somebody who's been a maintenance tech
Hmm.
and hire them. Well, the
That's
problem there is you have no idea if that maintenance tech, first of all, if that was actually their title, because not for nothing, 78% of people either embellish or outright lie on their resumes to get
hmm
through the filters for an interview. It's the sad situation. But
hmm
if you just look for titles, it's almost like looking for, the iceberg. If you only look at the surface of the iceberg that you can see above the water, you're missing out on so much more under the surface, right? So and I think small business owners are so busy again working in their business that they take the easy way out, or they take the way out that they were taught because that's how their previous employer did it before they started their business, right? But if
hmm
you look at a job that you need done, or your company overall, and you think, okay, I need a maintenance tech, I need these skills because I have this equipment that I need them to work on, these are the skills I need for them to have, and look for those skills in someone and think outside of the box as to where you might find them, then it's an entirely different conversation. It's an entirely better result for the company. And it doesn't take that much more effort, but the return on that effort is so exponential for your company. Skills-based hiring, people state their retention is 2 times higher. They're 52% more innovative. They're 5 times more productive if you look at from a skills-based perspective. And what I always talk about is, when you look at a skills-based process, you don't look at who, gender, you don't look at when, their age, where, their ethnicity or background, or how they earn those skills, whether it's school, military, or life in general. You're just looking at the human being. And what skills do you need? Do you have these skills? Let's have a conversation.
You know, I- so there's a lot of interesting things there, but so that I don't diverge off topic, once you match a candidate with a company, what's the next step in the process?
Yeah, so each one of our members gets a concierge acquisition manager to kind of do all the gardening for the employer. So that's what we call it. But they match, and then our concierge manager engages with that candidate, lets them know they match to a great career at a great company, gets them information about the job because it's a blind matching process. So they don't know what they're matching to until we reach out to them. So they're engaging with them, making sure they're interested, going over any other criteria that the employer has asked us to look for, whether it be certifications or just anything in specific. And then they're making sure that they're qualified and they're responsive. We have a huge issue with ghosting right now in the employment market
Yes.
on both sides of the equation, too. It's not just
Oh,
candidates ghosting, it's employers ghosting candidates as well.
oh,
So
that's terrible.
big problem. So we make sure that the candidates are engaged and responsive, and then schedule an interview with the business owner or someone on their team that they designate. So we're doing again all of that procurement for the business owner while they're working on their business. We're lining up those interviews.
Well, I find it hard to believe that employers would ghost just simply because they're paying for the service. Why would you do that?
I know. You'd be amazed, though.
If you filled the role, just say so.
Right? Yes, exactly. And we found a lot of times, and it's one of the reasons that we focus on smaller businesses because they're much more open to a skills-based process. A
Hmm.
lot of times the bigger businesses get in their own way and they say, I need to see a resume. I need to see industry experience. I need to see what their title was before. What skills do you expect someone to have or need them
Hmm.
to have in 5 years of doing this job? I always tell people I spent 15 years at a payroll company does not make me good at payroll.
Hmm.
So you just
Agreed.
have to look beyond and it the way the market's going and the way, COVID has changed how people look for careers and whatnot. We need to adopt a better process than the resume job application process we've had since Da Vinci.
Yeah. So my team, we started creating what we call a critical skills matrix. And those
Excellent.
interesting is, and so this is going to roll into a question. So when we first started developing it was, understanding of basic knowledge of, and I went back to my leadership team and I was like, no, understanding of, I'm going to say I understand it, no matter who I am as a candidate. what
Exactly.
what we need to do is dig down into very specific, like you can do a VLOOKUP in Excel, you can do this in Excel. And
Exactly.
so that's how we've modified them. And we're still in the process of developing them for all of our positions, but they've all been started at least, and one is pretty much complete. So do you work with the employers to help them get that specific?
Absolutely. So really what happens on the employer side is they'll tell us what job that they're trying to fill. So let's say it's a maintenance tech. We'll plug maintenance tech into our program and it'll spit out the skills associated with that occupation. We'll go over those skills with the employer to make sure that those are the right skills that that employer wants to look at. And it actually helps them because a lot of times they don't know exactly what skills, like you're saying, you're putting out this list, but is that exactly what you need for someone to have? So we do definitely work with the employers to say these are the skills that we would recommend for this position. Are you good with that? Are we off base? When we send them a candidate, then we get feedback from them. So if there's a reason they don't hire them, we ask for that feedback, and if it's a skill, we tweak our process a bit. We also look at them from a salary perspective. So, because a lot of times small business owners don't really know what salary to offer, right? And so we work with them to make sure they know industry, levels or standards for each position in their area. So, the cost of living is different in South Carolina than it is in Virginia or California, right? So we
Mhm.
do that based on where they're at or where the job is located. And we ask the candidates to put in their salary requirement so that we can match them to jobs that are offering that range of salary. So it really takes out a lot of the small business owners. What we do is really help them see, but we do the work for them. because hiring is not a core competency, and they may only do it a couple of times a year.
Mhm.
It's not something that they're very versed at, whereas we do it every second of the day.
My team thought I was nuts when I first started not pulling into the interview process those that were asking for salaries 25% above what we were offering. And they're like, but why? They have the skills. I was like, yes, but they will not be happy here. If they need that, they need that to feed their family. They're already telling you that's what they need.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, there are occasions where people will, inflate what they'd like to get. And we do
Mhm.
ask candidates to put in their minimum, what they need to support themselves or their family, and what's their ideal.
Right.
What are they really are striving for, right? And then our algorithm will match within that range. So it gives them the opportunity to get their minimum, or get somewhere in between their minimum and their ideal. So,
I think that's a good method. I think having that range of, like, hey, I can survive on this, but this would be great.
right? Yeah.
I think it's
What I
very
want to work
helpful.
toward. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. You have been such a great guest today. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. I do want to know, though, how our listeners can find you after the show.
Absolutely. So our website is talentsascend.com. So you can find us there and all the information. There's a candidate side and an employer side, so you can see information there. And then we're on LinkedIn as Talents Ascend, so you can find us there and follow us, connect with us there. And my email is robin@talentsascend.com. ROBYN at talentsascend.com. So yeah, we'd love to hear from everybody. Questions, if we just can be a resource for somebody, we're happy to do that. We've got an extensive network, so we just want to help people.
Absolutely. We'll make sure all of that information is in the show notes as well. Robin, again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me for today's podcast, where I focus on women in business and how we can be allies to one another. Please rate us on the podcast app that you listen to the most, and send me any ideas you have for podcast topics or any other feedback. I love to hear from my listeners. You can reach me at Denise@dcavirtual.com.